Hello everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture, and this is absolutely 100% the first time that I have recorded this, and I didn't already record it once before and forget to plug the microphone in. There is a new edition of SFX magazine that was released a few days ago, and there is news! There is things to discuss! Before we go any further though, as usual when we are discussing things from various magazines, this is but a fraction of all of the details and scoops that are available in this issue. There is a full-on interview with Russell T Davies where he talks about Season 1, Season 2, Disney, the ratings, Dot and Bubble, and so much more. So I would recommend that you go and get yourself a copy of the full edition, and there is a link down below. Let's get into it. So as I just mentioned, Russell touches on many things in this interview, and something that he does talk about is 73 yards. Of course, 73 yards is that big old mystery box that has a lot of lingering questions. But here, Russell actually reveals a few details that shed some light on some of the mysteries within the episode. So let's dig into what he said. First up, the woman. I think the main thing that we've all been wondering about after watching 73 Yards is what exactly the woman said to make all of those people suddenly turn and run away and abandon Ruby. I mean, even her own mother ran away from her. Well, according to Russell, and I quote, "That sentence doesn't exist." And then he also says that what is truly happening with the woman is, quote, "far deeper and graver than a simple sentence could accomplish." So one of the theories coming out of 73 Yards was obviously that the woman was saying a few words to the hiker, to Carla, to Kate, and the various other people that she spoke to. And that those words were what were making people flee. But here, Russell actually seems to be saying that it's not necessarily the words themselves that are important here. Like, the woman doesn't just say to them, "You're going to abandon Ruby," and then suddenly they turn and leg it. Maybe the words themselves are complete and utter gibberish, like a magic spell or something. Maybe she uttered some kind of incantation. Because what I can't understand is, what could possibly make Carla, Ruby's mother, there's such a strong connection, a deep bond between these two. What could possibly make her run away? Or Kate, for that matter. I mean, she is the head of unit. I don't feel like something simple could make Kate run away. You know, she's trained to be able to withstand this sort of thing. So simple words seems too simple. Unless it's the Imperious Curse. Maybe. Anyway, jumping off of this though, Russell also strongly hints in this interview that the key to the mystery of the woman is actually in the TARDIS perception filter, and this is what he said. "I say I don't explain things, but you are then suddenly given that clue in episode 8 that it's connected to the TARDIS perception filter, and suddenly that starts to make sense, but I'm not going to go into any more detail." Now, if I'm being honest, I think this is as close as we have actually got to a proper explanation for 73 Yards, and I think it's the closest we're going to get. It is quite interesting. Now, of course, the perception filter was mentioned in this episode, and then Ruby even points out that the woman does have a perception thing, because other people don't seem to be able to notice her, they can't see her. And then, like Russell says, it was then mentioned again in Empire of Death when the Doctor says that the TARDIS perception filter extends for 66.7 meters, and Ruby instinctively knows that that is 73 yards. But the fact that Russell actually starts here by saying, "I say I don't explain things," kind of makes the perception filter sound like the explanation, right? Why would you say, "I don't explain things," and then talk about something if that's not the explanation? Now, what if what's actually happening here is the perception filter is changing people's perception of Ruby, and that's why people run away? Let's look at it this way, okay? So the woman is standing at the exact same distance from Ruby that the perception field is from the TARDIS. So that puts Ruby in the TARDIS's position. And obviously we know that the TARDIS can change its exterior to blend in and to fool people when the chameleon circuit isn't broken, obviously. But by that same logic then, it could also change its exterior to scare people away. So perhaps then the words that the woman says leverage the power of the perception filter, and they simply change how people see Ruby, and that's what makes them run away. I feel like that's probably, to a degree, a simple explanation that then also keeps the show grounded in some of its pre-established logic. You know, we've known about the perception filter of the TARDIS for a long time, so that is a good way of explaining this situation. I'm not saying it's entirely simple, but there's merit to it. And let's not forget as well the power of a perception filter, how powerful they can be. So if you remember in The Lodger, not only can the whole giant spaceship hide on top of Craig's house, but the perception filter also changes Craig's memories to make him believe that it was always there. Not only can it disguise the ship, it can alter someone's memories. So a perception filter could very easily make people hate Ruby, or be terrified of Ruby, or make them see perhaps their biggest fear when they look at Ruby. I mean, if we're going to stick with the Harry Potter theme here, what if basically this perception filter makes Ruby a boggart? I do think there's merit to this idea. I definitely feel like no matter what is going on here, there is definitely more going on than simple words being spoken. I like the idea that it's not about what the woman says, but about something else surrounding her that changes the way that people perceive Ruby. That makes a lot more sense and feels a lot more powerful than just her saying words. I also feel like, could we ever come up with good enough words? So something else that's linked to the mystery of the woman is the cotton circle that the Doctor stands on at the start of the episode, and then also the note that Ruby reads that says, "Rest in peace, Mad Max." Mad Max, that's right folks, you heard it here first, Mad Max, Season 2 of Doctor Who, the ultimate crossover. Mad Max and Doctor Who. Shall we try that again? The note that Ruby finds that says, "Rest in peace, Mad Jack." So then later in the episode we see Roger Ap Gwilliam, and he literally calls himself Mad Jack. So then we're led to believe that he is somehow the same Mad Jack that's referenced in this note. There's also been theories that Mad Jack is some sort of monster or mystical force, which is not really a huge leap to make given the supernatural elements of this episode. But now, Russell has revealed exactly what Mad Jack is, and he's just a dog. Mad Jack is just a dog. Okay then. I guess R.I.P. my friend and a woof woof to you, Mad Max. Mad Max! Why is Mad Max on my brain? Mad Jack. Just a dog. But what is odd about this is that the episode leads us to believe that Mad Jack is Roger Ap Gwilliam. When he literally calls himself Mad Jack, what conclusion are you supposed to jump to? I mean, that is literally what sets Ruby onto him in the first place. She hears him call himself Mad Jack, then remembers the note that she found in the fairy circle all those years ago, and that is what makes her start to pursue him. But if Mad Jack is literally just a dog and has been all along, then that part of the plot was basically just a cosmic coincidence, which, to be fair, Doctor Who does do a lot of. But on the other hand, Mad Jack being a dog was actually sneakily revealed in the episode itself, when Ruby tells the people in the pub that she thought that Mad Jack was just someone's dog. So I guess those people in the pub were right in dismissing any supernatural explanation to Ruby's story, even though they were massive dicks about it. But still, we all jumped to this supernatural conclusion, including Ruby herself, when the answer was right there in front of her. She literally said it out loud. And I think what it really comes down to is this all plays into this idea that we were just talking about some of these answers actually being grounded more in the logic of the show rather than in the supernatural. There was never anything mystical about Mad Jack, just as the woman was actually linked to the perception filter rather than actually being a straight-up magician. And I think at the end of the day, this kind of gives more power to Ruby's journey and to Ruby herself. You know, there was never any big scary Mad Jack pulling the strings. She had the power to do this all along. It was inside her this whole time. And it was all her. She literally saved the world. It wasn't some higher power. And I do like that. What I will say about 73 Yards overall, though, is I do still feel like by the end of it, I'm left with a lot of unanswered questions and a little bit too much ambiguity. And I'm not talking about what did the woman say. That's a question that I feel can be left ambiguous and shouldn't really have an answer, as we've just been discussing. It's like the Doctor's name. There would never be a good enough answer to that question, and so I like that that is left in the air, and I don't need an answer to that particular question. What I do feel like was unanswered and left me unsatisfied, though, was things like, how was Ruby the woman the whole time? How at the end of the episode did she manage to travel back in time, back to the moment that young Ruby saw her? That's where I start getting confused, and that's where I feel like there wasn't a decent payoff to the end of this episode. I love a good mystery, and I feel like when I started this episode, there were elements of it that I really did like. I loved the whole supernatural element. I loved the scenes in the pub and that spooky vibe that we were heading towards. I just feel like as it played out, there were questions that were dangling that we didn't get answers to, and that felt unsatisfying. Now, myself and Danny were actually having a bit of a debate about this earlier today, saying that, some people found Stephen Moffat's era as showrunner too complicated, too confusing, too complex. But my argument with regards to comparing that era and this episode is that Stephen Moffat's storylines and threads, yes, they might have been complex, and yes, they may have been a little confusing, and they may have taken a while to kind of play out. But by the end of them, everything paid off. Everything made sense. Everything came full circle, and you could kind of go back and see all those threads and slowly piece them together once you had all the information. And I like that. I mean, I love a good mystery, but I need a satisfying payoff at the end of that mystery that I can then go, oh, that's why that happened, and that's why that happened, even if at the time I didn't understand why that was happening. With regards to 73 yards... poet and didn't even know it. I don't feel like that happened. I feel like I got to the end of this episode. There were very, very big questions hanging there that I do not think we will ever get an answer to. Bigger than what did the woman say? And that is where I see the difference. This isn't a kind of long-winded mystery that will eventually have a really satisfying answer given that I can then look back on this and go, oh, that was clever. Unfortunately, I feel like this is it for this episode, and we just have to accept that that's a mystery. And I find that unsatisfying. Overall, I think there were elements of this episode that were brilliant. As I said, I really liked the way that it was heading. I just don't feel massively satisfied by how it ended and the explanations that we have been given so far. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on 73 yards overall. What you think about this whole idea of the perception filter influencing what the woman is saying or being the actual culprit as opposed to words from the woman. Let me know your thoughts. I would like to hear them. And in the meantime, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.